Okay, we are back on. We had to free up some space. Right now we lower the brightness because it's totally my fault. I didn't prepare as much as I thought I did. I made sure our lamp was completely charged, but my iPad wasn't completely charged, and had to make some space, delete a lot of old apps that I wasn't using anymore. And yeah, I got a lot of video condensing to do because these last 20 parts, an hour and a half long, they're taking up all the memory of my iPad. And anyway, let's continue. We want to get back to this so we don't lose too much of our momentum that we had going on in our train of thought. But I was ending about how God thought everything into existence. And in the meantime, while I charged my iPad a little bit and cleared up some space, I pulled up Hebrews 11:3. This was written by Apostle Paul. Now, Paul says, by faith, we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of the things that are visible. Okay, I like the which are made out of things which do not appear a lot more. I believe that one's at King James. But he's telling us that this entire universe of which we live in is not made or manifested out of the things that are manifested, right? They're made out of something higher. And he's talking about faith. We know that faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And we know that with faith being the power of God within us, because we can have an idea, right? And when we act upon that idea in faith, that I am going to make this happen. I don't know how, but the things are going to come to me as I move towards the idea that are going to help me make this happen, right? It's taking a step in the direction of manifesting the ideal of what you have before you even feel ready for it, before you feel you have all the necessary things to even get started on it. What you do is you have the idea and you begin to act now before you feel ready. And as we talked about the law, you have the faith that it is going to come about, that it is going to happen, that it's going to manifest, and you then bring the things to you. It's the same process of faith that God used with creating this material world, this manifested world in which we live. So let's move on, because I know our battery is low and we are already about 50 minutes in. So where were we? It says, when you begin to perceive that the essence of the universal is within you, you begin to do things. You begin to feel your power. It is the fuel. Okay, this was the last thing I read. It is a fuel which fires the imagination, which lights the torch of inspiration, which gives vitality to thought, which enables you to connect with all the invisible forces of the universe. Hiccups, man. I don't know why I get hiccups so much when I'm speaking or even reading out loud. Which enables you to connect with all the invisible forces of the universe. It is this power which will enable you to plan fearlessly, to execute masterfully, but perception will come only in the silence. This seems to be the condition required for all great purposes. You are a visualizing entity. Imagination is your workshop. It is here that your ideal is to be visualized. So he tells us for us to create the perfect ideal, to have the most clear understanding of the vision and how we want our manifestation to, and what we want our manifestation to look like. We have to go into the silence, so there's no distraction, there's nothing influencing our thought, and we can work directly from that place to build the images, the scenery, the just how we see things looking like. We build that in our imagination. We think about it, and then we eventually move into acting upon it. Remember, we become what we think about most of the time. So the more you're consistent in your mental pictures, again, as we said before, it's literally changing the structure of your brain, which in turn changes your behavior, changes your actions. Your actions will influence the environment. You will become that which you are thinking about most of the time. Remember, that's how effortless power comes into play, and relying more upon the subconscious mind to bring the things you want about to you. As a perfect understanding of the nature of this power is a primary condition for its manifestation. Visualize the entire method in your head over and over again. So he's telling us that the more we'll be able to manifest, and the better we are with our manifestations will be dependent upon the clarity of our understanding of how this process works. And he's saying visualize the method of how the process works over and over again. Again, that's because it will become a part of you. You will then build the polarity. You will become a manifestation of the power of manifestation. You'll become that channel for, I want to say the word miracle, but you become a channel for miracles to happen within your life, because now you're allowing God to work with the clarity of image of which you have in mind, so that you may use it whenever occasion requires. The infinity of wisdom is to follow the method whereby we may have the inspiration of the omnipotent universal mind on demand at any time. And again, why is this power on demand at any time? It's because it's spiritual, and you're spiritual, and you bring, everywhere you go, spirit is there. Everything you do, you're doing out of the power of spirit. So you can go anywhere and use this power continuously wherever you are. We can fail to recognize this world within and so exclude it from our consciousness, but it will still be the basic fact of all existence. Like I said before, even if you don't know about it, it does not mean that it does not exist. Even if you don't know the internal world or the method of how this internal world we live in manifests through the external, does not mean that the principles are not working for you. And when we learn to recognize it, not only in ourselves, but in all persons, events, things, and circumstances, we shall have found the kingdom of heaven, which we are told is within us. Now, it's very interesting, because think about a time, too, we know about thinking and thought, our experiences being the manifestations of thought. Think about a situation you were in where you did something and it turned out to be absolutely foolish. And you were just thinking to yourself, like, what was I thinking at the time? Right? Why did I bring that up? I brought that up for a reason. Oh, like now, huh? What were you thinking right now, Wayne? That's classic. Anyway, let's continue. See, that's a perfect example. Use me as an example. You don't need to think about your own examples. Shoot. He says, our failures are the result of the operation of exactly the same method. The principle is unchangeable. Its operation is exact. There is no deviation. So he's saying the same law, the same process of which we create our successes in life is the exact same law and process that we use to create our failures. Says its operation is exact. There is no deviation. If we think lack, limitation, discord, we shall find their fruits on every hand. If we think poverty, unhappiness, or disease, the thought messengers will carry the summons as readily as any other kind of thought, and the result will be just as certain. As it is said in the Bible too, I believe it's in Psalms, it might be a Proverbs. But it says, if you take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uppermost parts of the sea, I believe that's how it works. He says, there you will find me, right? Like God is saying, it doesn't matter where you go. If you take the highest aspects of life and go there, you will find me there. If you make your bed in hell, then lo, I am there. Right? I am always with you. That's how God that's how God is with us. God is always with us wherever it is we go. If we make our bed in hell, God is there with us. If we're flying amongst the sky above everything with the grandest viewpoint, God is there with us too. If we fear a coming calamity, we shall be able to say with Job, quote, "The thing I have feared has come upon me," end quote. If we think unkindly or ignorantly, we shall thus attract to ourselves the results of our ignorance. So even with Job being a perfect example of him focusing on the negatives of the negative things, focusing on the things he feared upon. And because he focused on his fear, the things he feared had come upon him. He brought it closer to him. He fastened it to him because of his focus, because of his thinking. And because the law of attraction, we know these things, he attracted and pulled in the universe, in the universal mind, pulled the things to him to make that ideal manifested. Now, what's interesting about Job is even though he did this, he still praised God in the middle of everything. And God eventually gave him more, twice as much, restored twice as much as he lost to him. He says, this power of thought, if understood and correctly used, is the greatest labor-saving device ever dreamed of. But if not understood or improperly used, the result will in all probably be disastrous, as we have already seen. By the help of this power, you can confidently undertake things that are seemingly impossible, because this power is the secret of all inspiration, all genius. To become inspired means to get out of the beaten path, out of the rut, because extraordinary results require extraordinary means. When we come into a recognition of the unity of all things, and that the source of all power is within, we tap the source of inspiration. Extraordinary results requires extraordinary means, and as we know, those means having its center in consciousness, all that involves is you being disciplined enough mentally to think about just constant action, acting and acting and acting upon the thought, and conditioning your mind to think upon the ideal of which you desire to achieve, excluding all distractions, saying no to all distractions, not allowing your mind to be sidetracked by distractions. Because you have to maintain that train of thought and develop that habitual mental attitude. Now, it sounds simple, but we know it is not simple. It is not easy. It is it can be extremely difficult fighting against your own old patterns, right? And changing your patterns, because you have to be willing to let go of the idea of what you thought that you were, right? You have to be willing to let go of attaching yourself to certain things which you know are holding you back. Right? It is very, very, very hard to do, because a change of mindset, you will also feel a change mentally, right? It's an internal change. And just like we could be uneasy with the change of environment that we have to get used to, that same process is no different with your mental environment. When you enter into a different state mentally, you will feel like a different person. Even if you are in the same environment, right? You would feel like a different person. You have to be okay with that, right? You would have to step into that newness of thought, so to speak, and embrace it. Inspiration is the art of imbibing, the art of self-realization, the art of adjusting the individual mind to that of the universal mind. the art of attaching the proper mechanism to the source of all power, the art of differentiating the formless into form, the art of becoming a channel for the flow of infinite wisdom, the art of visualizing perfection, the art of realizing the omnipresence of omnipotence, an understanding and appreciation of the fact the infinite power is omnipresent and is therefore in the infinitely small as well as the infinitely large, will enable us to absorb its essence. Right? This power is within everything. It's in the smallest of all atoms. It is in the smallest of existence, as well as suns, black holes, the biggest things that we know in the universe. This power exists in. And please excuse all the background noise. My nieces and nephew are having a lot of fun and good for them. And my in-law and my brother are doing their thing. But we can't let that stop us from doing our thing. A further understanding of the fact that this power is spirit and therefore indivisible will enable us to appreciate its presence at all points at the same time. An understanding of these facts, first intellectually and then emotionally, will enable us to drink deeply from this ocean of infinite power. An intellectual understanding will be of no assistance. The emotions must be brought into action. Thought without feeling is cold. The required combination is thought and feeling. Now, it's very interesting because you do hear some leaders talk about how their life changed when they took the idea that they had and moved it into their heart. That is the analogy that they use. They moved it into their emotional state. They became emotional about it. They began to feel it instead of just thinking about it, right? As we are told with the two phases of mind from the conscious and subconscious, at the subconscious mind being the seat of the emotions, while the conscious being the seat of our ideals, right? When you mix the ideal with the emotion, then you bring vitality, you bring spirit into the idea, you bring life into it. Because we do act upon emotions more than we act upon logic, right? We know that even with sales, right? Our customer buys off of emotion more than they buy off of logic. So yes, you could present a product that's fantastic for a customer, every logical reason why they should get it, but only until you build the image in the customer's mind and get them emotional about how this product is going to make their life better. Only then, till you get it to that point, will they actually buy it. Okay. Inspiration is from within. The silence is necessary. The senses must be stilled. The muscles relaxed. Repose cultivated. Repose is stillness. When you have thus come into possession of a sense of poise and power, poise is calmness, you will be ready to receive the information or inspiration or wisdom which may be necessary for the development of your purpose. So as we were talking about prior, right, going completely into the silence, removing distractions, being present in the silence and in your vision, then the way will become plain as to which way you shall go. Where you'll receive the necessary material for the development of your purpose. Do not confuse these methods with those of the clairvoyant. They have nothing in common. Inspiration is the art of receiving and makes for all that is best in life. Your business in life is to understand and command these invisible forces instead of letting them command and rule you. Power implies service. Inspiration implies power. To understand and apply the method of inspiration is to become a Superman. So what he's telling us there is obviously it is our business to understand these laws and using them constructively within our lives, because we don't want to be a person around just chance or live our lives specifically by chance, right? We want to be that person who deliberately moves through life with goals, plans, ideas. And he is saying inspiration. We get those things. We get a clear understanding of things through inspiration, which we receive through the silence. And we know, he says, service, even you being of service, is dependent upon power, right? Get the power consciousness, the health consciousness, the wealth consciousness, whatever consciousness you need to provide your service, to undertake that power. But he says even power itself comes from the inspiration. He says understanding this method is how we will become a Superman, which we know even in the one of the prior parts. I don't remember if it was 18, might have been 19 just last week, might have been the week prior, when he was talking about attention, right? He says attention is the mark of a superhuman, because attention, your average person, I don't know how many seconds their attention span lasts nowadays. Something, I think Joe Dispenza said like 4 to 7 seconds is your average attention span. So if you could attend your mind on something for even 30 seconds to a minute, you are way ahead of the majority of the population who have no idea about the workings of mind and how mind manifests through the body, through actions, and how these laws are all work in unity with the thought process of the mind. He says we can live more abundantly every time we breathe. If we consciously breathe if we consciously breathe with that intention. The if is a very important condition in this case, as the intention governs the attention. And without the attention, you can secure only the results which everyone else secures. That is, a supply equal to the demand. So when he says that, a supply equal to the demand, he's talking about attention being the demand, right? Because the more we put our attention upon something, the more our forces are moving towards that direction. And because we're giving more energy to it, we're obviously going to create more supply out of that specific line of thought. And he's saying, unless you really have this attention, you will secure only the results which everyone else is securing, right? Which is just a basic life, a less than basic life, a life most people struggle with today because they don't have the attention, nor do they understand the value, nor these laws and the power of which we have within themselves. Remember, this is your opportunity. This is our opportunity to separate ourselves from the pack and do something of extreme value for our society. In order to secure the larger supply, your demand must be increased. And as you consciously increase the demand, the supply will follow. Now the demand, again, increasing the demand is simply increasing the length of time you keep your attention upon the task at hand. You will find yourself coming into a larger and larger supply of life, energy, and vitality. The reason for this is not difficult to understand, but it is another of the vital mysteries of life which does not seem to be generally appreciated. If you make it your own, you will find it one of the great realities of life. We are told that, quote, in him we live and move and have our being, end quote. And we are told that he is a spirit, and again that he is love, so that every time we breathe this life, love, and spirit. This is pranic energy, or pranic ether. We cannot exist a moment without it. It is the cosmic energy. It is the life of the solar plexus. Now, it's very interesting, too, because I know he's telling us that not only do we breathe in air, but we're also breathing in what he is saying right now, pranic energy. And pranic energy is the spirit of the life itself. So we're breathing in the Spirit of God with every breath that we take. And he is saying that this very cosmic breath, this energy which we inhale every time, is the life of the solar plexus. And we know the solar plexus is the center of the subconscious mind. And we know that the subconscious mind is the central point of this infinite intelligence within us, the Father within us. And we know even our conscious thought is dependent upon the functioning of the subconscious mind. As we said in the beginning, opening this part with caffeine, right? Not only are you burning out your brain cells, but you're also burning out your adrenal glands. Okay, and you have to recover. Your adrenal glands are a part of the subconscious functions, right? When you get into a situation to where you're experiencing anxiety or fear or the feeling of survival, you go into that fight or flight mode, and your body just floods with adrenaline. And caffeine will release these adrenal glands, or at least the adrenaline from these glands, when it's not necessary for them to be released. Every time we breathe, we fill our lungs with air, and at the same time vitalize our body with this pranic energy, which is life itself. So that we have the opportunity of making a conscious connection with all life, all intelligence, and all substance. Now, I did open this entire part with that too, when it comes to when you're meditating, and they talk about focusing on your breathing, where we know breathing is an automatic function, but we can voluntarily breathe harder or slower ourselves too. So the process of breathing and focusing on your breathing is bringing your conscious mind in unity with the subconscious mind within. In other words, your own individual center of I am into unity with the great I am. A knowledge of your relation and oneness with this principle that governs the universe, in the simple method whereby you can consciously identify yourself with it, gives you a scientific understanding of a law whereby you may free yourself from disease, from lack or limitation of any kind. In fact, it enables you to breathe the breath of life into your own nostrils. This breath of life is a superconscious reality. It is the essence of the I am. It is pure being or universal substance. And our conscious entity with it enables us to localize it and thus exercise the powers of this creative energy. Thought is creative vibration, and the quality of the conditions created will depend upon the quality of our thought, because we cannot express powers which we do not possess. We must be before we can do, and we can do only to the extent to which we are. And so what we do will necessarily coincide with what we are, and what we are depends upon what we think. Every time you think, you start a train of causation, which will create a condition in strict accordance with the quality of the thought which originated it. Thought, which is in harmony with the universal mind, will result in corresponding conditions. Thought, which is destructive or discordant, will produce corresponding results. You may use thought constructively or destructively, but the immutable law will not allow you to plant a thought of one kind and reap the fruit of another. You are free to use this marvelous creative power as you will, but you must take the consequences. This is the danger from what is called willpower. There are those who seem to think that by force of will they can coerce this law, that they can sow seed of one kind and by willpower make it bear fruit of another. but the fundamental principle of creative power is in the universal, and therefore the idea of forcing a compliance with our wishes by the power of the individual will is an inverted conception which may appear to succeed for a while, but is eventually doomed to failure, because it antagonizes the very power which it is seeking to use. So ultimately what he's saying there is, focus on the use of the law and how the law works, instead of focusing on changing everything with willpower alone. That the focus of the will should be dependent upon, hey, no matter what, whatever I'm thinking, this law is in motion. That whatever train of thought that I engage in is setting a train of causation. So my thinking, my will, should be focused on, hey, this is what's happening no matter what, because it's a natural law. Instead of thinking one thing and then taking an action to change it into something else. Right? Like you said, you can't make broadcloth from shoddy. You can't get an apple from an orange seed. Right? Your thinking and your actions must be in alignment altogether. Because if they are not, then you'll be manifesting one thing, but by your action alone, you'll be trying to change it into something else. It's like working against the law. You're working against what you created initially, or you're working against what you set in motion. It's like you're working in the manifestation to try to change the manifestation instead of working with the cause of the manifestation itself, which is thought, your attitude behind it. You should have said that from the beginning, Mr. Wayne. That was definitely a lot more easier to understand. It is the individual attempting to coerce the universal, the finite, in conflict with the infinite. Our permanent well-being will be best conserved by a conscious cooperation with the continuous forward movement of the great whole. For your exercise this week, go into the silence and concentrate on the fact that in Him we live and move and have our being. Is literally and scientifically exact. That you are because He is. That if He is omnipresent, He must be in you. That if He is in all, that if He is all in all, you must be in Him. That He is spirit, and you are made in His image and likeness. And that the only difference between His spirit and your spirit is one of degree, that a part must be the same in kind and quality as the whole. Again, this is the reason why Christ saw it not robbery to make Himself equal with God, because He knew He was made inside and out of God. And through that understanding, and understanding the characteristics and quality of everything God is, and how these qualities existed within Him, through His mental attitude, through the embodiment of Christ, it allowed Him to embody all that God is through who He was, through His center of I am, through His character. When He became God in the flesh, because He manifested that perfect unity with infinite intelligence, the universal mind. He says, when you can realize this clearly, you will have found the secret of the creative power of thought. You will have found the origin of both good and evil. You will have found the secret of the wonderful power of concentration. You will have found the key to the solution of every problem, whether physical, financial, or environmental. And as we know, what is that key? It is the understanding and conscious realization that your consciousness is the central point of the things you manifest in your life. Your thought process, your mental attitude is going to determine how you and It determines your character, right? Who you are as an individual. And you as a person is gonna go in every aspect of your life, whether it's financial, family-wise, health-wise. You and who you are in your character and your attitude is going to determine the successes that you have in these different aspects and avenues of our lives. Okay, that's the end of part 20. We're going to end with a quote by Haddock. And he says, and I quote, he says, "The power to think consecutively and deeply and clearly is an avowed and deadly enemy to mistakes and blunders, superstitions, unscientific theories, irrational beliefs, unbridled enthusiasm, and fanaticism." End quote. So for our exercise this week, we're going to be focusing on our unity with God the Father. We're going to be focusing on the power of the infinite intelligence that exists within us, and how us being offsprings and manifestations of that power. I know I said it before in a prior video when it comes to consciousness, because we know through consciousness is the image in which we are made in the universal mind, right? It is through the spiritual aspect of who we are. And we know that if these bodies and the nature of these bodies determines how this power manifests through us, because I was talking about brain cells, right? We know the brain is the most marvelous piece of mechanism that has ever been created. That the brain, because of the brain and the nature of the brain cell, if every cell in our body is giving off and receiving vibrations, and these vibrations are determining how we manifest in a form, then our brain, the reason we're conscious, if this infinite consciousness exists everywhere, and we are it, and we're expressions of it, the reason we are conscious is because our brain, the way it's vibrating, right? Our brain is vibrating. The cells, our brain cells are designed in such a way that it can receive the vibrations of consciousness that are filling all of space, right? Our brain can manifest that. We manifest consciousness, and the reason we do that is because of our brain, because of the function and structure of the brain. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting thought, a very powerful thought. And how could it be otherwise if there is only one, and we are all a part of the one, and we're conscious beings? In part 1, as Hanno opens it, he says the consciousness that focuses in on your brain cells is the same consciousness that focuses in the brain cells of every individual. That each individual is a manifestation of this one universal cosmic mind, the infinite intelligence. And then he says there's no dodging this conclusion, right? There is no other way. There is no other explanation. But anyway, we have our part. We have our part. You know, we got our week. 4 weeks left of Master Key System, then we'll be done with this 6-month process. Man, can you believe that? It's already been 5 months. That's wild. A lot has changed in these last 5 months. A lot has changed. And, you know, we just got to keep going with whatever's going on. Don't ever give up. Keep going. And remember, you can't say yes to everything, but you can't say no to certain things either. And you have to. All the choices and all the avenues that come to you in this life, remember to think critically about it, weigh out all the pros and cons, and decide which way is going to be the best for you to go. Because it's all about your values, right? And the life of which you want to live. Which opportunities are going to help you get to where you want to live and will be conducive to the lifestyle of which you wish to live. Because it is true, not everybody wants the same thing. Not everybody wants to live the same way. And that's okay. That's okay. Nobody has to live the same way that you do. What's most important is that God is with you in the path that you are taking. And as long as you're happy, and even if you're not happy, know that it could always be worse. And be grateful that it's not worse. That you still wake up and make the choice to go chase the things that you want. So anyway, remember, this is America. Because you live here, you could do that. Anyway, I love you. I'll see you next week.